Good morning everyone, I hope you're all doing great. We have another AJS in the garage, another one. I never knew there were so many AJSs here in the Portland area, but this is actually a different one to the one that I worked on a while back. It's dated as a 55, but I think it's a 53. And there's a couple of little things that I might like to ask for your help with. But I think that this is a 1953 AJS 18S, a 500cc single. But there is a slight nuance to this bike. It appears to have a matchless 350, a G3LS bottom end. So I think what this has got is got the bottom end crankcase off a 350, but the cylinder head is a 500. As you see some of these close-up clips, if you could let me know what the telltale signs are to look for, I'd really appreciate your help. My friend Ron bought it and he asked if I would be interested in taking a look to see if I can get it running. It has run in the last few years, I believe, but he needs me to take a look at a few jobs. The clutch isn't working, for example, so we'll take a look at that. I'll give it a full service as I usually do. I probably won't spend too much time on cleaning it up. Ron wants to do the final detailing himself, but I'll do a full oil change, check everything just from a safety standpoint, and then we will try and start this bike and take it for a ride. It's a lovely old bike. We've got some of the documentation and provenance of the V5 registration document from the UK, actually, from about 94, 95, and then some other information that came with the bike. The main instructions that Ron has are to get the bike running again, to get it roadworthy. So I'll give this a thorough inspection just to make sure that it looks like it's safe first of all, and just give him a list of my observations. And then I'll give it a full service before it goes out of the garage, and then some of the more cosmetic things, I'll mention those to Ron as to whether he wants to do them or not. Hopefully this will not be a long-term project in the garage, but I do have a little bit of time and capacity as I wait for some parts to be finished on the Manxman, and I haven't forgotten that as well. I haven't abandoned it already, but while I'm waiting for some things to be done, I thought I could work on this on the bench. That's the spring. I was expecting that. It's a bit dirty. Terrific. Awesome. I do know that you're not supposed to do this, but I'm going to try and grind this broken thread off here, this adjuster off the cable without nicking that cable. I just need it to work temporarily while I order a new cable for this clutch fix. Yay, perfect. I'm going to leave the kickstart assembly off for now while I just dry fit this outer cover just to double check this clutch is adjusting okay. If not, I'll need to order some parts. And I'm switching to the other side now, to the clutch basket. Everything looks really nice and clean in here now. I've given it a clean. and I don't see any indentations here. Everything looks pretty nice. I've cleaned all the plates, so it's just a matter of refitting everything now. The steel plates and the bonded plates, they're okay. If I was keeping this bike for myself in the future, I'd probably replace these with something a little nicer, get a nice new clutch pack. Okay, that's the springs in now. Hopefully they're adjusted correctly, but I can always readjust. The ball bearing is on the other side of the push rod, and then I've got the adjuster here. And I'm going to tighten up until it just rubs, or I can just feel it on the end of the push rod. And then I'm going to back it off half a turn. And then that's the clutch adjusted here at the clutch, and then on the other side. And then we'll fit the cable. Just feel it there. Yeah. And then half a turn off. And then tighten up this lock nut. Okay, let's fit the clutch cable on the other side now. Hopefully there's enough adjustment available with half of this screw missing. I'll just screw this in first of all. Okay, right, that seems pretty good. A lot freer than it was before. That's just using my hands, and I can see the push rod going in. And here's the bike now, all clean and tidy and ready for a good service. There was only a little oil left in there. That's it. boy. Oh, blue tack. Good old blue tack. I haven't seen blue tack in years. Oh. Here's the switch on the bench, and I'm just taking a look at it. The action was a little stiff, and I'm finding that some of the parts are just a little dirty, so I'm going to clean this up. Hopefully it will move a lot freer afterwards. There's like a little, looks like a roller bearing, but this is what runs along these pickups here, these terminals. And so I'll clean this up and polish it and clean these as well. And then I'm consulting the wiring diagram, which I needed a magnifying glass for, just to read that, because it was almost impossible to read that. Why would they make it that small? Why couldn't they just make it a bit bigger? Anyway, I've been trying to find out what all the wires are. It's a fairly simple wiring diagram, but as you saw, as I took the switch off the headlight bucket, everything, I think 5 wires were all connected to one of the terminals. So I'm going to check that out with the wiring diagram. In particular, the low beam circuit is should be on another terminal as well. So I'll definitely do that before I start putting things back together. Okay, that's the switch cleaned up. I used this 4-0 steel wool to clean up some of the terminals, and also the little pin as well, the little roller bearing, if you like, that sits inside this cam plate here, and then cleaned up all the terminals. Also used some contact cleaner as well, just to clean those up. And then round the edges. What I did see taking the switch off is that there's a retaining clip that's missing, and it sits in these grooves here, here and here, and these little dimples, and that holds it into the shell of the headlight. So I'll order one of those, but they're like $10 for a clip. So let's just see if this works now. So there's the switch, and it's a lot freer than it was. Decisive click now where it was dragging before. For this next job, I'm just going to adjust the horn. It's working, but it sounds like the Roadrunner. So if I press the button, Mimi, and so you adjust it here with this adjusting screw here. This horn is also in the wrong position. It needs to be over here on top of a cover plate on top of the engine mounts, but it's missing that plate. But I've ordered one from the spares. There it is. Just going to adjust this. Half turn. Sounds a bit constipated. And then maybe 1 turn. A bit better. No. No. I'll go back the other way. Here, like that. Oh, that's better. That's better. Let's lock that one down. The next job will be to fit a fuse. This wiring harness, and I think actually all of them for this year, this model didn't have a fuse. So I'm going to add a fuse into the wires. It's a bit of a mess actually. This one here is for the battery tender. I added this, but there are 4 other wires. Some are direct connections. So this one here, for example, goes directly to the switch. And then I think this one goes to the horn. And barring rewiring the bike, which is what I'm not here to do, I'm going to consolidate these 4 wires into one wire and then add an inline fuse. I'm just going to use a fuse wire here that you get on the battery tender. So I'll disconnect this and then put this in line, cut this here, and then this here, this one wire will connect to the battery. When I get the battery, I've actually ordered a new one because the old one had it. The next job is to check the fuel tank and the taps, the petcocks underneath. I know they need a little attention. The tank itself is very clean inside. The fuel inside smelt a bit like varnish, so I've emptied that all out and got rid of that. I'm just going to take a look at the fuel taps, see if we can fix those. Well, the tank certainly looks to be in very good condition. Oh, got a rubber piece there. The taps don't match, of course, and the action on this one is a little stiff. It's bunged up there. I can see there's lots of old fuel built up there. So I'll take this off, clean this one up. The action on this one, the tap action is fine, but it's orientated the wrong way. That lever needs to be on the outside. So this one's fine. So I'll clean this, remove them both, clean them, and then orient this, put proper sealing washers underneath and give this a clean as well, and then that should be the tank. Ooh. That's very blocked. Hopefully this will clean out with the ultrasonic cleaner. Yeah. This is a while later, after cleaning all the dirt and grime off the tank, and it looks a lot better underneath. Haven't done the other side yet, the top side, so that will be the next job. After cleaning this, but it looks like a new tank underneath now. Here's the tank afterwards. after a little polish with this ultra cut compound here from Maguire's, and then the rubber knee pads as well. It's not perfect. There's a few little dings and bruises on the tank, a few little chips, but it looks great. It looks a lot better than it did anyway. Okay, I couldn't stand it any longer. I have temporarily rewired the bike. This is just temporary, just for testing. And I've added the new battery box here, a new 6-volt battery. I haven't done the back end yet, but I have done the front end. Fixed the horn that was wired directly to the battery. And then up here, it looks a little messy, but this is just a proof of concept to make sure that it works okay. It was a complete mess, to be honest, and I think you probably noticed as well in previous clips how dim the lights were. Well, we didn't have a power wire directly from the battery to the ammeter. It was wired to the switch actually. So here's the battery connected. I've fitted a fuse as well, and I'll tidy all this up of course, but been through everything now, so more connections here. I think everything, we had 5 wires into one of the terminals, and so now as I turn this on, the lights are actually brighter, and I've wired the little dip in there to those as well. And then so that's low, and then when we go to high beam, that's this here again, a lot brighter, and then here even brighter again. So I'm thrilled with that. I'm really pleased with that. I was concerned that the battery wasn't even powerful enough to run the lights. They were so dim. The horn as well, that's working great. Seems louder than it was. So that's everything. I just need to put everything back together. I've got a clip for that. And then just remove the fuse now as well, which is a nice fail-safe device. And how I did it, I got the wiring diagram from the book. It's actually as simple as it probably gets in the motorcycle and automotive world. And I just picked out each individual wire and then made sure that everything is replicated on the bike, you know, whether from the regulator or 2 wires from the battery. I mean, it had like 5 or 7 wires coming from the battery. And then I just built each and every one of those wires, and you know, lo and behold, it's again like magic. Put the fuse in, turned the switch, and it worked. Each time I finished a wire, I just highlighted it with the orange highlighter. I'm so pleased with the wiring that it's worked okay. Yeah, I was getting pretty concerned about some of the way that the wires were wired on the bike. And then, of course, you know, seeing those frayed and burnt and damaged wires as well didn't help. That double-ended wire that I found down there turned out to be just a complete spare wire. So I've ditched all that. It seems a mess at the moment, but actually it's a lot simpler than it was. There are a lot of superfluous wires here. And so I'll just clean this up now, fit it all back to the bike nicely, you know, maybe tape around the wires that are running down the backbone of the bike, and then we'll move on to the next job. That is the bike rewired. I'm really happy with it. Everything seems to be working so much better now. There's the first pilot lamps, these 2 at both sides and the one inside, and then we switch to the main beam, and then we've got, see how much brighter it is here now. And then the horn's a lot better. And then on the rear, that's the rear light turned on, and then the brake switch is working. I haven't adjusted it yet because I haven't put the pedal back up, but that's working just fine. And then everything's really nice and neat inside the shell. And then the wires themselves, there weren't that many wires, so I haven't wrapped tape around them. I've just tidied them up nicely down the backbone of the bike. Got a new battery box there as well, new hardware with those trunnions. I added a battery tender pigtail at the back there. There's also a fuse now fitted in line, and then we've got down to here. I kept the original wires, but I've tidied them up a lot at the back here. And one thing I haven't done is move the horn from here to this new plate here as well. It's supposed to go into this fitting, but actually it's the wrong bracket for the horn, and honestly maybe that's another job for another day. This obviously is going to turn round, but that's working just fine. Yeah, again, some of these connectors, they all came apart as I was disassembling it, so that's all fixed now. It's looking a lot neater. So that's it, I think, for electrical, touch wood, and now it's moving on to the carburetor. I'm going to take the carburetor off and clean it thoroughly before it goes back on the bike. Yikes, these are on tight. I wouldn't be surprised if there is some flange warping. Here's the monoblock carburetor disassembled on the bench, and as you can see, it's pretty dirty. All the jets were blocked. Well, not all of them. The main jets weren't blocked. But yeah, as you can see, it's been left to sit with fuel. See, that's all swollen there. It's been left to sit with fuel inside the carburetor. It smelled pretty bad, just like varnish. It smelled like it's been in there for a long time. But as you can see, generally everything's in pretty poor condition. Inside there, very dirty as well. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's actually been safety wired, has the float needle to the float itself. And I don't know if that's standard practice, but it may work, but I'll be taking that apart and just going back to the standard setup. So yeah, as always, you've seen me do this many times. I will take all of these parts and put them in the ultrasonic cleaner, clean them for probably 20, maybe 40 minutes. I do them in cycles of 10 minutes, and I use a mixture of 80% hot water and 20% simple green solution, which is the purple coloured solution. Here are all the parts after they've come out of the ultrasonic cleaner, and they look great. I've polished some of the other parts up myself as well. I actually used a 4-0 steel wool just to clean this up, get rid of, some weight that was the corrosion on there. Talking of corrosion, there was a little bit of corrosion on the carburetor itself, just a bit there, a little bit inside, but nothing too bad. It actually came up really well. So now what I'm just doing is checking for squareness. And you may remember that I thought that flange would actually be warped, and it is. So if I put that on the surface plate, for example, that's quite a lot. As you can see, that's rocking quite a bit. And then even this mating surface as well for the float ball, I'll put that on. Even that, I think it rocks a little bit. So this, I'll rub down with some glass paper. But this, I'm going to use the jig that my friend Bob made. It's essentially a monoblock jig, and you put this piece here in the bore until that hole comes through here. And I'm going to put some oil on it so it goes in a little easier. Basically goes into the bore there, and then imagine that piece is in there. You put this through here, and then you tighten it up as well, and it just bends these flanges back into shape for the most part, as good as we need. So that's great. And then everything else is looking pretty nice and tidy. I've got a new gasket set, so I'll do that next after I've finished working on this jig. So it's a lot better. And the other thing to notice as well is this piece that goes into the bore. When I'm pushing it in, it's real stiff to go in, but it just slides out because the secondary impact or the effect is that it straightens out the bore as well, which will be great for the throttle valve. I might just put that on a piece of glass paper as well, just to get the rest off. I don't want to over tighten it. Here's the carburetor mounted back on the bike and everything seems to be working just great. There's the throttle. And then the choke. Ron also asked if I would order a new Kickstarter because this one here is pretty worn out and it looks like it's been brazed, and I'm sure it would be just fine, but I did get one. I think this was the only one available in the whole world, and this is from Peter's Classic Motorcycle Bike Parts in the Netherlands, and it's great. It looks really nice piece of kit, so I'm going to put that on next. Good morning guys, here it is on the driveway and ready to start. As you just saw, I just took the spark plug out and kicked it over just a few times and I saw the oil was coming out, and so that's great. Oil is circulating. Jeff is coming over around 11:30 and we're going to try and start this bike. It's been a fun project. I've really enjoyed it, just doing little sub-assemblies. The biggest were, I think, the wiring. Clutch turned out to be a relatively simple job, but the wiring was a big problem. We fixed that, no problem. All right, I've got like 2.5 gallons of non-ethanol fuel in the fuel tank. I haven't turned on the tap yet, so that's next. So I'll give it a good flood and then hopefully that's it, because there's no priming or anything. You just go, don't you?
Does it have a choke?
It does. The choke is on, yes.
Okay, you got the choke on,
Yeah,
and
yes.
you give it a tickle.
Yes.
Well, I guess step one is you turn the gas on. And
Yeah,
see
let's
if
just
it,
try that.
see if it pukes gas everywhere. That's the.
This is one of those new taps which I oh no, it's pouring out.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate those monoblock seals. Oh man. Just get the fire extinguisher out of the way. All right, and the fuel. Yeah, we're good for fuel. All right then. Oh, it's popping. Oh, it's very pleasant, very comfy. Needs a little work. Front brake works great. I may have found the root cause of the Speedo problem. I took the cable off at the front and at the rear, and I spun it at the top using, you know, it's like a square section cable, and nothing happened here. And so when I pull out here, the cable has snapped. So I'll need to order a new cable. And then I blew out through all the airways, through all the jets with compressed air again, just to clear it up. They all looked fine, actually. The pilot jet possibly may have been a little bunged, but it seemed okay, but possibly just a little bunged up. So hopefully this is now the carburetor and the backfiring issue resolved. And then if the carburetor does not fix the backfiring and the popping, and it's not this, then it's this. What is the old saying? 90% of carburetor issues are electrical, and vice versa as well. So I haven't checked the points, haven't checked the magneto or the auto advance position, anything like that. So that will be next. This is just a process of elimination. Okay, the points gap should be 12 thousandths, and it's actually about 20. So I can get a 20 thousandths feeler gauge in there easily, and it's not even touching the sides. So I'm just going to tighten these points up, adjust this, just move them in to 12, and then I'll clean the points as well, and then we'll try again. Going to try and test the coils now. There's two coils. There's what I understand a primary and a secondary. The primary HT or high tension coil is between, I believe, this lead here at the other side of the coil and the points. And I think the expectation is that the resistance is about 0.5 ohms. And then the other coil is this bit here. This is the bit that sparks from, I think they call it a pip. This spark sets the spark to the cover. On the other side of the cover is that there, which I've cleaned up, and then that goes through the high tension lead to the spark plug. And I've tested that the spark works. You know, I already did a test on the spark, but I just want to check the resistance. And so this resistance is, I believe the range is 4,000 to 6,000 ohms. So I've got my multimeter here, which I only just know how to use. So let's set that on, turn that on. I'm setting it to, let's do this pip one first. So here, we're going to measure between here and ground as well. I think I've seen videos where they do it to there maybe, or maybe here. Anyway, it needs to be a ground, so here to a ground, and I'll find a ground point there and measure that. And because the expectation is that it will be 4,000 to 6,000, you set the ohms switch here to the next size up, if you like, the next reading up, which is 20,000 here. And so that's where we are. We're switched on here. See if I can leave that there. And let's try this. So we're touching the pip here and there. And it's 4,840 ohms, which is within tolerance. And it's good. Again, 4.84. What happens if I put it there? 4.84. Even there, 4.83, 4.84. So within range. So that's good. And then the second reading, or maybe the first reading, because it's so small, I'm going to set it to 200. I'm not sure what to expect here, even if it will even show on this multimeter. So then this one is, I believe, between, is it in here, here and here? All right. And that is, it's supposed to be, you know, as low as you can get it. I think 1.1 maybe. Yeah, let me just put it on the point. The other thing I forgot to mention as well is the points are open. Yeah. So I hope that proves that the coils are working within the magneto. This isn't timing, of course, this is just the resistance of the coil pack. And so I've now done some more work on the carburetor. What I've done there is I've actually lifted the needle by lowering the position of the clip in the needle. So instead of it being on the 1, 2, 3rd or middle position, it's now on the 4th or 2nd one up, which essentially lifts the needle, which makes it richer in the carburetor. And then again, I took the carburetor off. I cleaned the pilot jet thoroughly again, double checked that I can see air through it. It looks pretty clean. I got a magnifying glass out and it looked pretty good. And so I don't have a spare one, unfortunately, but I might order one if that doesn't work. And then I think that's it. I've put the carburetor back on the bike and now it's ready for another test ride. Good morning, we are back again, and here's the latest. I've actually changed the carburetor. I've put another carburetor on the bike. Again, it's a monoblock. It's on loan from Jeff. It's actually from his Triumph Thunderbird from '64. I just want to go through a process of elimination and double check for sure that it's not the carburetor. Now, this carburetor was working just fine on his Thunderbird. It was running a little fast on the idle, and that's why he changed it, but jetting and everything else should be great. So I'm going to try and start this bike, see if it will hold an idle. If it does, that's brilliant. It means it's the carburetor that's the problem. If it doesn't, if it's super erratic and it's running really rough and lean, then I'm going to start looking at the timing, which will be next. So I've got my fire extinguisher ready, just need to give it a tickle and a kick. This is the first time I'm kicking it with this new carburetor fitted. and it leaks. Okay, still dripping just a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and try and start it now. Okay, this is another carburetor fitted. I put together a carburetor. I had several old cores and I put together a monoblock. It's a 376, but it's a /17, so slightly different dimensions. It's actually a little smaller than the one I just took off, so I'm going to try and see if I can get this to work. If this works, I can give him the bike back running and then he can source another monoblock, whether it's new from Emil or Berlin or if he's got one already himself. It's not leaking, this one. Okay, hopefully there won't be so much coughing and spluttering this time. Well, that's decidedly better. Oh, it's significantly more civilized now. Oh, it's running lovely. Yeah, it's not doing like that lurching forward now. Oh yeah, it's miles better now. Oh, still got to do the cable, haven't I? That's on its way. What a difference a carb makes. An old thumper, correctly thumping this time. No, it sounds wonderful, feels much better. More stable. Listen to it just plod up this hill, it's wonderful. Yeah, it would have been popping and coughing and spluttering by now. I will pull the plug as well when I get home, just to make sure it's not running too lean. This front brake's really good. The back one's just okay, as you can expect. Well, that's it, guys. That's the test ride. Here it is, guys, it's finished and off the bench. Ron's on his way over to pick up the bike, and it's been a great project. I've really enjoyed working on it. It's been a lot of fun. Of course, those 5 things turned into 50 things, and I'm really pleased how it finished. But overall, these are just lovely old bikes, and I hope you have enjoyed this video that's captured the essence of this wonderful old thumper AJS. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks for subscribing and liking. It all helps. I really appreciate it. And then on to the next project. See you next week.
See you, Ron.